Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Nadia Rizvi. I am an assistant director on the compliance team here at the ISSO, and I'm joined today by my colleagues, Claire Raybach, Senior International Compliance Advisor for the ISSO, as well as our Senior Associate Director, Maria Reynoso, who will start us off with a few words today.
Thank you, Nadia. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. I am delighted and grateful to be here with you today, and I'd like to give you a warm and very special welcome to all of you, how to provide you with very useful information. As you know, for fall 2021, Columbia University is resuming in-person instruction and activities with the vaccine mandate and public health protocols in place to ensure a fully engaged Columbia community. Faculty and administrators have been working very hard to make this possible for you. We understand how difficult obtaining a US visa has been, and it continues to be during this pandemic. And we would like to reassure you that our office is here to assist you in this difficult journey. ISSO has a team dedicated to assist you with all your visa-related questions. 2 members of the team will be presenting and responding to your questions today, but the other members of the team are diligently working behind the scenes to make this a successful event for you. I'd like to take this great opportunity to say thank you, ISSO team, and thank you, compliance team, for all your hard work. Also, I'd like to thank you all for all the efforts you are putting in place to obtain your student visas. I know it's very difficult, very hard. Thank you all. So please do not hesitate to contact us at any time, and thank you for your patience while you receive a response. Remember, we are here for you, and we are very much looking forward to welcoming you in person on campus this summer. We are very excited. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maria, for that warm welcome and introduction. I want to echo Maria's excitement and welcome you all again. We are very excited to welcome you to Columbia's campus this fall. I also wanted to share with you a few details about the ISSO and about your peer group. Columbia is very proud to host the 4th largest international student community in the United States, with over 17,000 international students. Our team of 6, the compliance team, is very busy preparing your documents. We're preparing documents for over 7,000 students anticipated to join us this fall. With all that said, it means you are in very good hands with us here at the ISSO, and you will have plenty of international peers alongside you during your Columbia journey. I also want to acknowledge that there are 3 different groups of students in the audience today. The very first group, you are new students who are admitted for fall 2021. The next group are students who may have been admitted last year but decided to defer due to the pandemic or for personal reasons. And the third group are students who started studying remotely either last semester or even last year, but have decided to join us on campus this fall. But there's one thing that all 3 of these groups have in common. You are not yet an F1 or J1 student visa status at Columbia. Therefore, for immigration purposes, you are all new international students to the ISSO. So today we'll discuss briefly the I-20 or DS 2019 application process, as well as the visa application process. We'll also discuss fall policies for travel and enrollment. We'll spend some time answering frequently asked questions that we receive from students via email. And finally, we will have a live question and answer session today. You can enter your questions in the Q&A box that you see at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Just know that we might not be able to answer all of your questions today, and we won't be able to answer case-specific questions. So if something's very specific to your individual situation, you'll want to send us an email. And we'll share our contact information at the end of the session. So the great news is that most of you have either applied for your I-20, are waiting for it, or have received your I-20 already. So you know that there are several steps in order to get a student visa to study at Columbia. The majority, again, have applied for your I-20. If you're a new student, you'll visit our website for a list of documents that you need to submit, as well as the entire procedure. If you were admitted for a previous term and you already received your I-20 last year or last semester, then we'll email you instructions. We have emailed you instructions about how to apply for an updated I-20 to arrive for fall term. But briefly, I do want to go over the important steps in the process that you need to remember. So first, you need to prepare your supporting documents. And that includes a copy of your admission letter, funding documents to cover a year of study in your program, as well as the financial certification form. Then you'll log into Compass and submit your application for our team to review. I know that many of you may have questions about the financial documents, about the financial certification form. So my tip to you today is really to submit all the documentation that you have to the best of your ability, and our team will review your application. If we need anything further, we will email you. You won't need to start the process again from the beginning if you're missing something or if we need clarification. So it's important to get your application in if you have not submitted it yet. Once you've submitted your application in Compass, then the hard part begins. You need to wait for our team to review it. As Maria mentioned, we are diligently working very hard on all of the applications and the questions that we're receiving from you. We'll email you when the I-20 is processed. We will also send you your CVIS ID so that you can begin the next step, which is to apply for your visa. And that final step, you'll have to apply for the visa by submitting an online application to the embassy and schedule a visa appointment to appear in person for an interview. And we know that right now, visa processing is of concern to our students. We understand that visa processing may be delayed depending on where you are. And that's because last year visa processing was suspended. And this year they're experiencing backlogs as well as staffing shortages at many locations around the world. But we are very happy to hear that visa processing has resumed. We've heard great stories from students who actually had visa appointments scheduled way into the future. For example, we had students in Turkey who had appointments in 2022. That's all they could get, but their appointments were moved up. And so we're very hopeful that the embassies will begin to prioritize student visa applications as the summer progresses and the fall term is approaching. Each location will reopen and offer appointment dates based on their local conditions, based on their resources and their staffing. So it's important to refer to the US Embassy's website. We recommend clicking on the news and events section on their website to find out about their local reopening plans and plans for scheduling your appointments. So here are some tips about the I-20 and visa process. Once again, if you've applied already, and the majority of you have submitted your applications for an I-20, please be patient with us as we get to your application. Our processing time right now is about 4 weeks. If you're a new student, if you've never received your I-20 from Columbia, we do require 4 weeks. And again, we will email you if we need anything at all, or with your next steps and your CVIS ID. Please also remember that your I-20 is specific to the fall semester. So if your plans change, for example, if you're unable to arrive for fall 2021, we will email you and ask you if your plans have changed, and we'll have an opportunity to update that I-20 if needed. Expect that email in August and September, so there's no need to let us know at this time. I still encourage everyone to try your very best to arrive for fall 2021. And we will email you in case plans need to change. And 2 tips about visa processing. As I mentioned, each location has their own process, has their own procedures. For example, many students ask about receiving emergency visa appointments. That will vary by the location, by the city and the country. So the criteria for what constitutes an emergency might be different depending on where you are. And we do encourage you to go ahead and try for an emergency appointment or an expedited appointment, but know that not everyone will be approved for an expedited or an emergency appointment. It is, again, dependent on that local embassy's staffing and their resources. And finally, some good news. If you already have an unexpired F1 visa, you can continue to use it. So for example, if you've received a visa before, if you attended another school and that visa is in your passport and the expiration date has not passed, you can still use that visa to enter the US with a Columbia I-20. Great, so I will turn it over to Claire now to talk about fall policies.
Thank you, Nadia. Now we'll discuss some important policies to keep in mind for the upcoming fall term. And we will start with enrollment policies. So earlier this summer, President Bollinger sent an announcement, as we mentioned before, indicating that Columbia would be pursuing an in-person format for classes this fall. And I'm sure you've seen in the last several weeks, many additional updates coming out about how Columbia is preparing to be able to provide that in-person format for students. Given everything that Columbia is preparing, the university does expect all students to take in-person courses in fall 2021. We understand, of course, that there may be challenges to arriving in time for the start of classes. And if you believe you will be arriving late for the fall, or you cannot arrive to campus for the fall semester, we do recommend you contact your academic department to confirm your enrollment options or possibly options for deferral. We've been assured that schools will work as much as possible with students who need to arrive late to ensure that you can still, meet all of your academic goals. And if for any reason you might be arriving late this fall or can't arrive, as Nani mentioned, please know we'll be reaching out to everyone later this summer to confirm your arrival plans. And we can also provide you steps to update your I-20 or DS 2019 if you've already received it. Okay, and then I think another big topic that's very prevalent right now are the travel policies that you're probably aware of that do place limits for direct travel to the US from certain countries abroad. The travel policies can require that individuals traveling from certain countries to the US must quarantine in a third country for 14 days before entering the US. So it creates a block of time where you cannot enter directly. However, even with these travel policies in place, there are several exceptions that are being made for students, F1 and J1 students, given how important it is that you're obviously able to enter the US for your study. So first, we'll discuss the travel exceptions for the F1 and J1 students who are arriving to the US from the Schengen area, the UK, and Ireland. So F1 students who are traveling from those areas to the US can enter the US directly from those areas, and you do not require any additional exception to travel. So you're just coming with your normal travel documents as an F1 student, your valid F1 visa, your I-20, and you don't need any additional documentation. And you do not need to quarantine in another country for 14 days. For J1 students who are traveling to the US from those areas, the only additional step you do need to take is that you must contact your nearest US embassy or consulate to initiate an exception request. And we've seen that previously the consulate may provide J1 students with just an additional document indicating, you're permitted to travel directly and the dates you can travel. And now we'll also talk about the rest of the, the exceptions that are in place. And these exceptions are similar, but a little, just slightly different. And they're for students who are traveling from China, India, Iran, Brazil, or South Africa to the United States, and an exception that does not require the 14-day quarantine in another country has been put into place for students traveling to the US from those countries for a fall 2021 program. So students with a valid F1 visa traveling to the US from one of these countries for fall 2021 do not need any additional exception document to travel. Similar to the other case, J1 students traveling to these areas to the US for the fall 2021 semester must contact their nearest US embassy or consulate to initiate an exception request. So there is just that one additional step that the consulate should be able to provide that additional document to you if you're a J1 student. But for these students traveling from these countries for fall 2021, you can enter the US up to 30 days before your fall 2021 I-20 or DS 2019 start date without needing to quarantine. And as you may know, when you're receiving your I-20s, your start date has been determined in conjunction with your program and will typically be between mid-August and September. So just make sure to take a look at your fall document once you receive it, or if you already have it, and just plan to travel accordingly within that 30 days and enter the US directly at that time.
Thank you. Now we'll spend some time answering frequently asked questions that we receive by email from our students, and I'm hopeful that we've covered a wide array of topics here, and your question from today in the Q&A box might actually be answered in these next few slides. So the first question we often receive from our students is, what happens if I cannot arrive in the US this fall? So for example, you get your I-20, but for some reason you're not able to get your visa, or you have personal circumstances that prevent you from entering the US this fall. In that case, we recommend that you speak directly with your admissions office about options for starting your enrollment virtually or deferring to a later term. If you've already received your fall document from the ISSO, again, we'll reach out to you about how to update that to arrive at a later time.
All right, a next question we often get is, what happens if I will be late, or how late can I arrive? So maybe due to challenges getting the visa, challenges getting a flight, you may be arriving later in the semester and not in time for the start of classes. So the answer to that is that we recommend contacting your academic department about your late arrival plans. As I mentioned previously, we know the departments will be working as hard as possible to keep you up to speed if you can't get here for the start of classes. Your I-20 or DS 2019, as we mentioned, does have a specific start date on it. So if you are a few days late, it's usually not a problem. But if you will be missing several weeks of in-person courses, then you'll not only need to let your program know, but also reply to our email that we'll be sending out in August to confirm your arrival plans. So that way we can make any necessary updates to your I-20 or DS 2019.
Another frequently asked question we receive is, what if I want to arrive next year? So for example, you get your I-20, you get your visa, but your plans change and you've decided to arrive later. So the answer to that again is to speak with your academic department about your options. Not all departments may be able to offer you a deferral to a later semester. If they are able to allow you to begin your program online, then in that case, we do need to update your I-20. If you do defer, again, we'll need to update your I-20 as well. And once again, we'll be reaching out to you in August and September about your plans for the fall I-20, and we'll be able to update that at that time.
So the next question is, I am a transfer student. What issues should I be aware of? And the answer to that is, based on university policy, you need to arrive on campus for classes this fall. You should apply for your transfer I-20 as normal and transfer your F1 record from your current school to Columbia. And we do have a special set of instructions on the website about transferring your F1 record to Columbia. So I would recommend going there if you're unsure about those steps. And then if you can't arrive to campus for the fall term, please know that we will contact you in August and provide next steps to obtain updated documents.
Another big question that we've been receiving is about visa applications. So students are emailing to ask, how can I expedite my visa application? So the answer to that, again, depends on the local embassy's criteria and their ability to expedite or offer you an emergency visa appointment. So you do need to refer to the embassy directly for their procedures and inquire with them about the earliest available appointments. The good news is that no additional documents are required from the ISSO. Once we issue your I-20 or your DS 2019, that lists the start date that you need to be here by, and so no further documents are needed from the ISSO. If further support is requested or you desire it, you may ask your academic department to write a support letter, but again, it's not usually necessary. Just keep in mind that not all expedite requests and not all emergency visa appointment requests can be honored just due to the sheer volume and the lack of staffing and backlog at some of these locations, but it does not hurt to try.
So I think this is a popular question as well that we will receive. When will I be eligible for CPT or OPT? And so the answer to this is really based on regulations. And so in general, you must study in the US for a full academic year as 2 semesters to be eligible for CPT or OPT. And so this does mean that students who have taken classes exclusively online outside the US, they're not considered to be in F1 status yet. And so that time spent studying outside the US online does not count towards the 2 semesters. We do recommend reviewing our website to see all of the details of CPT and OPT eligibility. But if you do have concerns about your specific situation or you're still not sure of when you would be eligible, please email our student services team at ISSO at columbia.edu so they can confirm your eligibility and advise you, best based on your situation.
And another question that we've been receiving, of course, is about vaccination requirements and where students can go for assistance with these questions. So here are the resources. I recommend the very first link here, covid19.columbia.edu. That is the university's resource guide, and it has literally everything you need to know, including a very comprehensive FAQ, frequently asked questions document, at the top right of that page. So please bookmark this page, refer to it often because it is updated frequently. And the FAQs at the top right are extremely helpful about vaccination resources, getting vaccinated on campus, deadlines, and so on. If you have questions about how to submit documentation for any type of required vaccination, you can reach out to the Immunization Compliance Office, and their email address is the first one here. But please be patient with them because they are also very busy at this time. And finally, there's another email address on the screen. That's for our university's COVID resource group, and they manage that resource guide website. So if you have questions, again, about arriving to campus and testing protocol for campus, then you can send them an email and again, be patient for their response. So hopefully this has helped to answer some of those burning questions that you might have about I-20s, visas, enrollment, and so on. But I also want to remind you that our website has all of the answers that you need to submit your application for an I-20, to help guide you through the visa process, as well as very comprehensive website information and instructional videos about employment. So please refer to our website. It is ISSO.columbia.edu. And if you still have questions about a specific topic after reviewing the website, of course, then reach out to us. We're always here for you. Many other questions that we receive can be answered on our COVID-19 resources and updates page. So when you go to our homepage, you'll see a link at the very top on an orange banner that will take you to the resources and updates page. Here you'll find answers to frequently asked questions, both for new incoming students as well as frequently asked questions for current students. You'll have the latest updates about university policy as well as government policy related to visas and travel. We'll also have videos of our webinars posted here and links to many other resources. So I strongly recommend you take a look at this page on our website to answer some of your questions. Of course, we have other resources at Columbia University that sometimes ISSO is not able to answer your questions, for example, about vaccinations. So we have links here to other colleagues and resources at Columbia. The very first one, again, that I shared earlier, the COVID-19 resource page, which is extremely helpful. I also want to mention there that there are videos about vaccination requirements on that website. There are 2 webinars that the COVID-19 resource group will be holding for students about the vaccination requirements. They will be on July 12th and August 16th, and you can sign up for those vaccination webinars by going to that website. Of course, we also have questions about housing in New York. If you're a graduate student, you can visit this website, residential.columbia.edu, for your housing questions. If you're an undergraduate student, you'll receive housing information from Columbia Housing. Any insurance or immunization questions should be directed to Columbia's health office, and they have a very comprehensive website at health.columbia.edu. And finally, if you have questions about registering for classes, how to choose your classes, or the orientation program before classes begin, please reach out to your academic department. So I'm just going to recap very quickly what we discussed today. The very first thing I want to mention is if you have not applied for your I-20, if you haven't submitted all of the forms yet, or you're still waiting on some clarification, I recommend submitting what you have and applying for your I-20 as soon as possible. And then if you've applied for your I-20 already, please be patient with us, as we do have thousands of requests and we're trying to get through them as efficiently as we can. Next, make a visa appointment. Take the first appointment that you can. And we are hopeful that visa appointments will be moved up as they were in other parts of the world. We're hopeful that embassies will begin to prioritize student visa requests because they are aware that the fall term is approaching. Refer to ISSO's COVID-19 resource page on our website. Again, we have an FAQ document there that is updated frequently, and we will continue to update that for fall 2021. And finally, the ISSO will be emailing you very important updates, as we mentioned throughout the session today. We'll be emailing you in August and September about reporting your US arrival or reporting any changes to your plans. So please be sure to check for those emails and check your spam folder, because often our emails are getting filtered there. So please check your spam folder frequently for important messages and deadlines from us. So I'm going to now move into our live Q&A, and we'll refer to the questions that you've submitted in the Q&A box in Zoom today. Before then, I want to remind you that we can't answer case-specific questions, so questions about your particular application. If you have a specific question and you believe it's urgent, you can certainly send us an email, and our email addresses for 2 different campuses are on the screen right now. Please only email the one email address that pertains to your campus. So for example, if you're admitted to the main campus, you're a Morningside student, and our email is newintlstudent@columbia.edu. And again, add these emails to your safe senders list. If you find that our messages are going to spam, please add these email addresses so that you don't miss important messages from us. Great, so Claire will start us off with the first question.
All right, so it seems we did receive a few questions related to this today. Do Canadians need to apply for a visa after they've received their I-20? And it is a good question. because generally the process for most students is that you apply with our office for your I-20 or DS 2019, and then you must go to the embassy to get the visa stamp for the F1 or J1 student visa. The only exceptions to this is that citizens of Canada and Bermuda are not required to get a visa stamp in their passport after they receive the I-20 or DS 2019 from the ISSO. So once you have your document as a Canadian citizen, you still need to bring your I-20 or DS 2019 when you're entering the US along with your other documents. You still need to pay the CVIS fee, but you just do not need to go to the consulate to get a visa stamp. Once you've arrived in the US and you've shown your I-20, your documents to the port of entry, they'll enter you in the US as a F1 or J1 student. And then all the other F1, J1 regulations will apply the same. So once you're here, all the rules are the same. The only exception is you don't need that stamp.
Thanks, Claire. So the next question we received a few times in the Q&A is for us to confirm that students who opt for 100% online coursework do not need to apply for an I-20 and a visa. That is correct. You do not need an I-20 or a visa to study online remotely from outside of the United States. So if you've decided and your department has allowed you to take all virtual remote courses from your home country, then you do not need an I-20 or a visa. You cannot be in F1 status if you're entirely online and if you're not in the United States. So hopefully that's clear. If your department is having that option for completely online remote coursework, then you do not need an I-20 or a visa.
All right, and I think this third question kind of piggybacks off of that, also related to online learning. If I'm an international student and will enter the US this fall on time, may I take online courses instead of on-campus courses? So there are regulations in place that anyone who is studying in the US as a F1 or J1 student cannot, new students cannot take online only classes. So you are entering the US to participate in study that's on campus. Since Columbia is having an on-campus in-person format this semester, the regulations allow international students to take one online course up to 3 credits per term and still maintain status, but not 100% online only study. So if you are arriving, you should make plans to arrive and study in in-person format for the most part. If you were planning to do 100% online only learning this fall, then you'll need to make arrangements that you arrive in a later semester, since that's not permitted under F1 or J1 student status.
So the next question that we received many questions actually about COVID-19 vaccinations. So can students get vaccinated on campus, or must we get the vaccines in our home countries before we arrive? So I do want to repeat that ISSO is not able to answer specific vaccination immunization questions. The Immunization Compliance Office and the COVID-19 resource that we mentioned earlier, those are the best resources to go towards. It is my understanding from the many emails that were sent and from the information they have on their COVID-19 website, that's covid19.columbia.edu. Take a look at their FAQs about vaccination on campus. It's my understanding you can get vaccinated after arriving to the US. You might have a protocol about getting tested and having to wear a mask while you're on campus because you won't be fully vaccinated, but certainly check the COVID-19 resource page and try to attend their webinars. They have one coming up July 12th and another in August, and you can sign up for those webinars on the COVID-19 resource page.
All right, and we did receive some questions about administrative processing. So that's when you've gone for your visa interview and maybe the consulate has requested additional information from you or needs additional time to do some checks on your application before they can approve your visa. Unfortunately, there is no way to expedite this process if your application has been put into administrative processing. If it's a situation where you are handed a letter at your visa interview requesting additional information, we do recommend just trying to reply to that as quickly as possible. So hopefully that will resolve the issue. We have been hearing from students who've been being requested for CVs from their advisors, syllabi, things like that. So if you are being asked for any program-related information, we recommend reaching out to your department so that they can hopefully provide you a letter. If you do not have a type of program where you already have your advisor, that's often the case. And we've been seeing that letters from departments have been helping with that. If you didn't receive any additional information, but you just have been notified you've been placed in administrative processing, it is unfortunately a bit of a waiting game and cannot really be influenced by the school. But once the Department of State resolves that, it's usually resolves issues within 30 to 60 days, we'd say is the general timeline. You'll hopefully receive your decision shortly after that.
So the next few questions that we received were about receiving electronic copies of the I-20 via email. I think there are some concerns about receiving the physical copy by mail. So I did want to clarify that. If you're a new student, you've not received an I-20 from Columbia, then we will send that very first I-20 by mail to you. We want you to have at least one original I-20 from Columbia signed in blue ink from us. So we are sending those by mail. We're not sending electronic I-20s to new students. The reason for that is that eventually, and perhaps soon, but we don't know, the pandemic protocols that are in place that permit electronic I-20s will end. And students will need an original I-20 to travel with. So it's best for you to have your original document. Just because of our volume, as I mentioned, we have thousands and thousands of students. It's very important that we send you your physical I-20 so that you have it in hand and you don't need to worry about getting a new I-20 once the pandemic protocol ends, which could be early next year for winter break, for example. We're not exactly sure. So it's very important that Columbia continues to send you your first I-20 by mail. And then if you are receiving amendments, some of you may have received an I-20 last year or for spring 2021, and then we changed it to arrive at a later time. In that case, those updates and those amendments are being done electronically. But the very first one we are still sending by mail. We find it very important for you to receive that original document in the mail. And you'll receive a tracking number and be able to get your CVIS ID even ahead of that so that you can begin the visa process. From my understanding, I haven't heard too much about delivery delays at this point, but if you feel as though there are delivery delays, please let us know.
Hi, Nadia. Sorry, this is Gwyneth Smith from CUIMC. There's one exception. CUIMC students are receiving electronic I-20s the first time.
Thank you.
All right, so our next question we have is related to the visa. If our visa expires during our time at Columbia, is that okay as long as we don't travel outside the US? So yes, so the visa is an entry document. So that means it has to be unexpired or valid when you're entering the US from another country. So that's why you need it to apply for it once you have your I-20 before you're arriving for the fall. So that way you have a valid visa in your passport. Once you're inside the US, as long as you're continuing your academic program and you're maintaining your student status, if it expires while you're inside the US, that is okay. Your length of stay once you're inside the US is really determined by your progress in your course, the dates on your I-20. So always make sure those are accurate. You want to extend your I-20 if you need more time to study, or if you have a work authorization in the US, maybe after your program you've applied for OPT and you get your card from the government showing your dates of OPT. So that kind of defines the length of stay. The only time you would need to renew your visa is if you're traveling outside the US and your visa is already expired. you'll need to get a new student visa before you return to the US. So that's, coming in and having a valid visa in your passport. But while you're inside the US, it is okay to expire as long as you are up to date with all your other documents and maintaining your status. And we do have an About Your Visa page on our website that's really good at going through the different aspects of the visa if you do want more information.
We have some questions from transfer students in the Q&A. One of them is, I've received my I-20, but the status on the I-20 says transfer pending. Is this of concern? So that's a really good question. If you've received your transfer I-20 and it says transfer pending, there's nothing to worry about. That transfer I-20 is valid for you to use. You can use that to travel. You can use that, moving forward. You don't need a new one. I do want to take a moment just to talk about the transfer process, since there might be other transfer students here today who are starting their I-20 application process or in the middle of it. It's important that you submit your application as a transfer student in our application system, Compass, and let us know that you are maintaining your F1 status at another school. The immigration status form in the application will ask you, are you currently in the US? Are you on OPT? Did you recently end a program in the US, an F1 status? And if you answer yes to any of that, then you may be eligible to transfer. And your current school or your previous school, if you're on OPT, will need to transfer your record to Colombia in the government system. All the information that you need to have the transfer done in CVIS is in our application in Compass. So we often receive emails asking for our CVIS school code. That is in the application. So if you haven't started the application, or maybe you haven't gotten to that part yet in the application, it is there. And it's important that your previous school transfers you if you are active in CVIS. Once we've issued the I-20 does say transfer pending on it, but that's fine. That's normal. That's been the case for many, many years. It's just going to say that. You do need to complete CVIS report form. We will email you when that is due. And once you report to us that you've arrived to Colombia, your transfer is then considered complete. But again, you don't need a new I-20. Your transfer pending I-20 is just fine.
Thanks, Nadia. And then this question is also dealing with the F1 transfer process. So I think that was a great outline leading into this related question. And it is someone who is talking about transferring their F1 record to Colombia from another US school in their 60-day grace period. So that is the period of time after you've ended your studies in the US, but you still have an option to take action on your record, such as transfer out your F1 record to a new school. So for students who are in that situation, the biggest thing is that you want to make sure that the transfer date for your F1 record from your previous school to Colombia takes place in that 60-day grace period. But as long as you've already applied for your I-20 and you've transferred your F1 record to Colombia, if you're still waiting for us to process your I-20, it's all right. You can remain in the US past the end of the grace period because you did take that action. You're not required to depart. And our processing time is posted on our website, but just keep in mind with transfer students, we must, we have our processing time, and then we also must have your F1 record transferred to us in Colombia to issue our I-20. So if your school puts a transfer date in the future, maybe it'll be transferred in July. We won't be able to issue a Colombia transfer I-20 until July. But overall, you can remain in the US. The important thing is that you've transferred your record and you've applied for the I-20. And then you're permitted to wait for it, whether your 60-day grace period has ended or not.
Great. So the next couple of questions we received is about the visa interview process and what documents need to be brought to the visa interview. This specific question is, does the proof of funding that we provide during the visa interview have to match the I-20 amount or the full duration of the program? Your program might be, in this case, it's a 1.5 years, but it might be a 2 or 4 or 7 year program. In most cases, you are expected to bring the same proof of funding that you provided to the ISSO, and that's just for the first year, for 1 year of your program. And in some cases, the visa officer might have questions about how you plan on funding subsequent years in your program or more semesters in your program. And if that comes up, then you can verbally answer that. But typically, the funding that you bring to your visa interview should just match the amount that's listed on your I-20. And for additional information on what to expect during the visa interview and what documents to bring, take a look at our website. If you click on, if you go to our website, it's issa.columbia.edu, then click on Getting Started, and you'll find information there on how to apply for your visa and what to expect during the visa interview process, as well as tips on how to complete the visa application online. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, and this is an additional question about the visa process, and this student is asking about scheduling a visa appointment in a country outside of their home country, and if that's possible and whether they might run into problems. So generally, we do recommend that students apply for the visa in their home country as much as possible. We understand, especially these past 2 years, there are extenuating circumstances which may make that difficult. But when you go to your visa appointment, you will be asked to, provide proof of non-immigrant intent. That means you have plans, to return to your home country or not stay in the U.S. after your program, and for ties to your home country. So if you are planning to apply for your visa in a third country that's not your home country, we do recommend reaching out to the consulate or embassy where you plan to apply to make sure that they will process your request. If they'll need any additional information, because now you're not in your home country proving ties to your own country, you're in another country. And just know that, right, they might request additional information from you, and the processing time might be longer. So given travel restrictions and quarantines and things like that, it's all something you want to take into account if you are planning to travel somewhere else to apply for the visa.
So the next question I see is, again, asking about transfer I-20s and the transfer process. It looks like the student is looking for the CVIS school code, which again is in our application. You do need to log into Compass and start the I-20 application. In the immigration status section, you'll be asked a question about your current status, and that will provide you the CVIS school code. It is there, it's in blue font in the middle of that immigration status form. And we will also send the CVIS school code to your previous institution once you've completed this part of the application. So again, take a look at our website. The Getting Started section again on our website has a link to applying for your transfer I-20, and it has information there. We often receive questions about what is the order of applying for my transfer I-20. Do I have to be transferred first from my previous school, or do I have to submit the application first? And truly the order is not very important. It's just both of those things need to be done. You have to be transferred from your previous institution to Columbia, and you have to complete the application. But in this particular case, if you do the application first, you will see the CVIS school code. And so it's my preference, and it's my suggestion to you to start the application if you haven't already, and take a look at the immigration status section for information that you need to complete the transfer. Hopefully that helps.
This next question, I would think could be on many students' minds, and is, will my parents be able to come to the US to help me move? And I think there are, many challenges this year that would not have been previously an issue at all or in anyone's mind in previous years. So I think things that you do need to keep in mind regarding parents coming is that if you are arriving to the US from one of the countries that does have travel policies, you as a student, as the F1 or J1 student, might be eligible for those exceptions we talked about. But if your parents are coming as tourists, there are not those exceptions in place. So you'd really need to plan accordingly if your parents will be coming in as tourists, and see what the restrictions and policies are for that kind of travel to the US, since that is a little more broad in its enforcement currently. Those are always also subject to change, but it's definitely something to keep in mind. If you are living on campus as well and going into on-campus housing, I'd say reaching out to the housing office just to confirm what their policies will be about having others in the dorms. You know, there might be limits and restrictions to that. So that would be a good thing to check. But if you're living off campus, I think the biggest thing is just checking to see what the policies are related to tourist travel to the US, depending where you're coming from. And then, yeah, adjusting based on that.
Thank you. That was such a good question. We have time for just a few more. So let me answer this one. Do we need to pay the CVIS fee before submitting the DS 160 application? So the CVIS fee is paid to a different part of the government. And the DS 160 application is a separate application and also has a fee, and that's the visa application. So technically, it's my understanding you don't need to pay the CVIS fee first, but you should have the CVIS fee payment made before you attend your visa interview. That is something that is at times looked for. So once you pay the CVIS fee, you'll have a receipt that you can print and bring with you to the interview. I understand there were many concerns about CVIS fee remaining valid. So if you're not sure if you're coming for fall 2021, it's okay to wait and pay the CVIS fee a little bit later, but the CVIS fee should be paid before entering the United States. And it's my understanding the CVIS fee is sometimes asked for during the visa interview. So please have it paid at least before attending your scheduled interview. And I see another question from some Canadian students about the DS 160. The DS 160 is the visa application with the US Embassy or consulate. Canadians are exempt from the requirement of obtaining the visa stamp in their passport. So this step is not relevant to Canadians or Bermudans. But for everyone else who's completing the DS 160, we have very helpful tips on our website. So please take a look. I think we'll stop there. I know we had a lot of questions. I'm sorry if we weren't able to get to your specific question, but you can certainly send us an email if you have a pressing question that's not being answered in the FAQs today or on our website. Our email addresses are on the screen. I noticed some people in the Q&A box were saying that they emailed ISSO and they haven't received a response. We have a special email address for new international students, and that's on the screen in front of you. So just email the one that pertains to your campus, and please be patient with us. It takes us at least 5 business days right now to get to your email. And again, our website is going to have most of these answers for you. So please certainly take a look at that. I want to take a few moments again to thank all of our new international students. Thank you again for your patience as we try to get you the most up-to-date and most helpful information during these very uncertain and stressful times. I know that you're making a very big life decision to come to Columbia and to move to New York right now. And over the past few months and the past year, we've received so many emails from you, so many messages of kindness, and so many words of support. Thank you for understanding how busy we are. Thank you for your patience. And please know that we're working absolutely as hard as we can to answer all of your questions and process your I-20 requests as quickly and as best as we can. We're here to support you. We care very much about your health and your safety, and we're here to provide you the very best possible service so that you can arrive to campus this fall and be successful here at Columbia. So thank you again, and I hope today's session was helpful.